Hail, weary podcast traveler and well met. I see your adventure through the depths of the internet has led you here to sliding into the DMs. Now, this is not a podcast for the dirty boys, as the name implies, but rather a D&D advice and creative concepts podcast where these three nerds take your questions, suggestions, and pop culture influences to turn them into playable content, making goofs all along the way. This show is for everyone, from level 1 adventurers just stepping into the realm of D&D to the level 19 Dragon Slayer. Their aim is to help both players and DMs alike. Even Gary Gygax needed help sometimes. Just ask Dave Arneson. So step into our tavern, take off your cloak of Elvenkind, and spend some time sliding into the DMs. Roll for initiative.
10.
17.
Fuck me running. Well, I mean, you probably could catch me and fuck me running because my initiative is that low that
Nice.
you're going to have an action before I even
Surprise round.
even get to move. So
I love it. I love it. So that means Nick.
Yeah, I'll be taking off this show. So, good evening. This is Sliding into the DMs. I'm Nicholas, the well actually guy.
I'm Bruce, the crazy creative one.
And I'm Trevor. I'm the one that keeps these two crazy cats from going off on insane tangents and
Crazy cats.
crazy cats, man.
All right.
But keep them from going off on crazy tangents and keeps them on point to some extent.
He doesn't do it quickly, but he does it.
Sometimes.
He gets
Yeah.
around to it every now and again.
Here comes the Trevor train.
All right.
Choo-choo.
So as a traveler on Trevor's train of continuity, I am going to make Nick say some words now. Ready, go.
Alrighty, so I have something I want to talk to you boyos about, and it came to my head the other day. I was just kind of thinking about lycanthropes, and well, if a player or NPC has a lycanthropic curse and transforms into a werebear, does
Hey.
that werebear go dormant if it's in the winter and start to hibernate? Say it's a December full moon and the NPC begins to transform, and as the body shifts, they moan out in pain, but then collapse to the floor as a grotesque bear-shaped beast.
Narcolepsy.
If you listen closely, you can hear a gentle snore coming from the bestial form. So what do you boys think about that? Do you think that if a lycanthrope has innate animalistic tendencies and habits that are natural to it, do they inherit those as well?
So before we get too far into that, you should probably
I was just going
describe
to
to
say.
people that don't know what a lycanthrope is.
So we've all heard of werewolves, and essentially a werewolf is a lycanthrope. It is a humanoid that under certain conditions, whether it be a full moon or at will, different things like that, they transform into a bestial form, like a were-rat.
Which is a condition in D&D as well, right?
Yeah,
Lycanthropy?
lycanthropy is a condition. I believe it's most often a curse,
Mm-hmm.
and the curse causes lycanthropy, where a certain humanoid will be able to transform into its lycanthropic form. In this case, a bear that hibernates throughout winter.
So I love the idea that the flaw of the werebear is this hibernation kind of mode, or like even in your human form, like some of the overcast of the lycanthropic form. As you know, most humanoids, I mean, in some movies you can see it where if it's a werewolf, they have heightened senses in their human form as well. So with the werebear, I feel like some of the overcast into the human form would be during winter and colder conditions, you actually start to pack on weight and you start to like eat more and prepare, whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you intend to do this or not, or figure this out. I think that'd be a funny flaw to put in, as well as the hibernation kind of mode where it's almost like you're dreading the transformation again, even though it gives you this immense power. Or if it's like you get a level of exhaustion and you immediately have to sleep. So it's like it's still functioning, still able to work, but because of it, you end up snoozing after battle really hard.
So this would almost be a real fun flaw to force on a player who wants to play a lycanthrope, because it almost sounds like as a character flaw or a player flaw, that this is maybe a curse that they had when they started at level 1 at the beginning of the campaign, maybe. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I could see that. Like,
Yeah.
if you're letting your characters build kind of free form and whatever they want, and then you let them choose this kind of lycanthropy blight upon themselves. Like, yeah, you get all these added benefits, but there's got to be some kind of bane to this boon. So I can see
I like that a lot, especially, you're going to be a lycanthrope, but you're not even a druid, and you could change form. Well, as a penalty to that, sure, you can have the lycanthropic transformation. But every year, starting in October, going all the way to February, you start dealing with bear problems. You start packing on weight. And
Hashtag bear problems.
Hashtag bear problems. You start packing on weight. You start getting sleepier. You start looking for a place to kind of call your own and pack it in. And you start pack ratting all your stuff away. And I would even say, in the height of winter, you grow a thicker fur, like your natural body hair thickens. And you also, kind of stop pottying as much as you cork up down there.
Oh, no.
You're just a little bit sleepy, maybe slow down the movement speed, lower their dexterity, give them a dexterity penalty in those months, but give them a higher constitution.
Have that kind of barbarian type rage where they're easily agitated.
Yeah.
Definitely give them almost a constant first level exhaustion.
Yeah.
I was going to say, too, not so much a rage, but have it to where they're more irritable during those winter months, and they're more likely to transform. And then when they transform in those winter months and the bear's awake out of its hibernation, maybe in that point it goes into a feral rage caused by anger for not being asleep.
Yeah, I like that.
Or even have it to where when they transform, there's some type of save they have to make to determine whether they stay awake in that form or fall asleep. As soon as they transform, like, oh, you got hit, you go into your feral rage, you start to transform. Go ahead and make a con save for me. Oh, what's the DC, you ask? Well, it has to do with your party or your character level, or I would say maybe your character level plus your wisdom modifier, or you have to make a wisdom save, and you get to add your character level to it.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then it would just be a set DC probably.
I like that. Maybe go ahead.
I'll say, I think, too, even then, it's not those winter months, even whenever they do go into that lycanthropic state. I just keep imagining the professor from Harry Potter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Lupin? I can't think of his name right now. I keep wanting to say Sirius Black, but Sirius Black is not.
It's Lupin.
Lupin, thank you. So, like, when he goes into it, total feral rage, but when he comes out, he's, like, tired and beat up for like days. Exhausted. So same thing. Every time they come out of that state, they have to take
automatic
at least
3 stages. 3 stages exhaustion.
Ooh, that's rough. Harsh.
Yeah, they got to rest up for 3 days after that.
Man,
that's a good one.
That would force role playing for sure.
So we got a lot of questions since our last podcast, and I think it's a good time to go ahead and address some of those.
I agree. Okay, so our first question comes to us from Facebook. James C. wanted to know, as a former player from 20 plus years ago, what are some things to expect from 5e versus the previous generations of the game? What should players and DMs expect now that could not be done before?
Ooh.
Well, just starting out with 5e, I know one of the biggest effects of 5th edition is the addition of advantage. Being able to have advantage on rolls or disadvantage on rolls, which kind of leaves the game open to more role-playing and less stat stacking.
Yeah, I think another thing that is different about 5e especially, is there's a little bit of more fine-tunement in classes. There's you have more availability to not just min-max your character, but like you can really dive into some of the meta stuff on it and change it. I mean, it's a lot more different than 20 years ago, you're probably playing, the earlier editions, 3.5, AD&D, which is advanced D&D, one of the beginning creations of the D&D that we know and love today. And a lot of people who jump from one to the other, they kind of talk about how, the rules are explained very mechanically with the spells and the abilities and the character traits and stuff like that. And then it leaves it kind of shallow on the description end, on like the flavor, which I think is done so that you can do that yourself. You can add that kind of flavor to it and customize it even a little bit more. A lot of what you see in 5e is spellcasters have a lot more mechanisms and mechanical effects that tend to be a little bit more powerful. And then let me read this quote from an article I read, and I do not remember what the name of the article was, which is probably bad, but it says it was a review of a lot of the additions and what separates them from each other. But in reference to 5e, it says, in some places, notably for non-spellcasters, I think they've created somewhat awkward mechanisms to try and distance themselves from 4e, or 4th edition, while keeping the mechanical effects similar, mainly in the form of resource management, and opposed to 3 point whatever model of using feats to create a single attack you can use each turn. The 5th edition fighter looks more like the 3.5 or 3rd edition fighter, but under the hood there's much more than 4e than anything else. Which I think is talking about how in 4th edition there was a lot of play. There's a lot of stuff you could do flavor-wise and translation-wise from something you wanted to do and using that mechanic and creating a kind of interesting situation rather than just saying, well, the rule says that this thing does that.
Well, going in there, I never really played 4th edition myself. My very first time playing D&D was back in high school, and we played 3.5. Comparing it to what we play now in 5th edition, I can't really pinpoint a lot of differences between the two, but both times I played the more recent, year and a half or so that we've all been playing. I've we play heavy role playing because we were inspired by the Adventure Zone and Critical Role, where it's real heavy role playing. So we didn't really dig too deep into mechanical building of stuff. We kind of just built characters to have fun with without stat stacking. But back in 3.5, I just remember there was 4 of us and we shared 2 sets of dice, and the DM had their own. And we kind of just let the DM, because we were all newbies to it, so the DM just led the way, and we just followed their direction. So I don't have a whole lot of insight into the differences other than from what I've been told by other players. Mm-hmm. And typically in the past, I've been told that 4th edition was more mechanics built, where everything was real based strongly around mechanics, and the mechanics were there to where flavor was more adjustable in the game. But it was more strictly like heavy combat, building your characters, going out and putting them in combat and encounters and scenarios, where their mechanics were controlling how things went. Where in 5th edition, with the addition of advantage and disadvantage systems and the heavy use of inspiration and DM given inspiration, it opens it up for a stronger role playing scenario that brings the story to life with the players, with less strings and glue and red tape holding them down behind the mechanics of it.
Yeah, that same article I read said something basically similar to what you had just said. There was one thing it said was the advantages of 4E, the 4E's way of doing things are clarity. Mm-hmm. As a player, you know exactly what your character's abilities do mechanically, and a greater freedom to reskin existing classes and abilities by keeping the mechanics but changing the flavor text.
I would say what I know between the various editions up until 3.5, it's very structured. This is your stats. This is the quest we're going on. This is, a certain path. We're going to go get this treasure. We're going to go do this. Very structured. And then I think 4 opened it up a lot more loosely, and you had a lot more freedom in 4 to do, like you're saying, add a lot more flavor. But like I said, very, like you're saying, very combat based. Most of it wasn't so much on the role playing side of things. You were building characters for combat, but you had a lot of freedom in the open world to do that combat.
Yeah.
And then I think 5 really is a straight mashup of a 3rd edition and a 4th edition. It brings some of the rules and mechanics back from the 3rd edition stuff, gives you a little bit of wiggle room to add your own flavor, and then just really opens up the world for more RP than 4th edition would, kind of getting back to the RP part of the 3rd edition.
Yeah, I've only ever DM'd 5e games. I've only ever played 5e games. I never played D&D before we played, just recently, in the last, like Nick had said, last year and a half or so. And so, from my standpoint, and I think I agree with a lot of the things brought up in that article, where that, running monsters is a lot easier than what it looked like in the past. They have their own stat blocks and abilities that make them a little bit more unique to kind of differentiate them from, actual characters and players. I think 3.5 was basically your monster had the same exact play sheet as your players. And so you had to go through and figure out, okay, he can do this, this, and this. He's from this class, so he has that. Whereas 5e is like, this is a monster. He does his own thing. He has his own abilities. Here it is in a basic stat block. Like, it's way more simple to run a campaign or a creature or a character from 5e's point of view rather than the earlier editions other than 3.5. It sounds like if you want to play mechanically, you play 4. If you want to role play, you play 3.5. And then if you want to do a little bit of both, you play 5e. That's what it seems like to me, but I could be wrong.
I'd agree. That's the way I understand it as well. Like I said, I mean, just like you, I've only played 5e, but from what I understand of newer generations, newer editions, I'd say what you said is pretty accurate.
Okay.
So there's our take on the differences in editions for Dungeons and Dragons. But hey, it's 5th edition; they're always improving. So why not just jump on 5e?
Yeah, and just like ever, it seems daunting when you first get into it, but a lot of the times once you start playing, you start picking up like the nuances of it. It's real easy to jump in. It's real easy to get a handle on before you're not going to get lost going from whatever edition you played, 3, 3.5, 4 to 5th edition. I think you'll be fine.
Also, if you're feeling a little intimidated by the 5th edition rules or ideas or gameplay, just let us know. We can answer those questions for you.
That's what we're here for.
So I have a question for you guys that I'm going to steal.
Shoot it from the hip.
Hit me.
So Instagram, we got a question on there. If you don't follow us, go to Instagram and search SitDMs1. That's at SITDMS1. And follow our page there. You get some cool pictures and fun things and all that kind of stuff. You can keep up with us there and send in your questions as well. So Kayla N from Instagram said, what is one of the craziest / funniest times the group of players went way far left off the path you were trying to keep them on and take them down? And were you able to get them back on track? Or did you have to give yourself a new game plan?
Does she literally mean like go left, like you're walking down a path and then your players just turn left into the forest?
For you, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
So, Trevor, do you remember when you guys decided that you wanted to stop chasing the main goal of the game and go dragon hunting?
Yes, this is in our campaign that we play now as DMs and Trevor as a player.
7 games ago?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, like 7 games.
You said there's a dragon, and that's where in the past timeline you got all your cool shit.
Yeah,
why would we not want all of our cool shit back?
For all of our listeners, in our main campaign, we started off as a one-shot where our players rolled some level 3 characters and went on a quest. And after it turned into 2 games for this, and they all got hooked. Mm-hmm. But in this quest, there was a backstory that they all had these really cool magical items that they took off of an injured young adult dragon.
Yeah, and that's where we really messed up. That's where it all began.
Yeah, that's where we messed up as DMs.
Yeah, we wanted to make it interesting because they're first-time players, so we wanted to give them a little bit of a power boost because you're starting at a higher level. So you have more access to spells, more access to abilities, more access to feats and stuff like that. Yeah, but then we also gave them magical items. Yeah.
You dangled a steak in front of a Rottweiler, okay? We were ready. We wanted it.
Well,
that's true. Again, I said we messed up.
So they go through this one shot, and when they get to the end, it doesn't shake out the way, the protagonist would hope. So the main protagonist decided to use up all of her ritual magic to go ahead and shift time and send the entire party back 5 years.
Which, wink, wink, that was our way of starting them over as level 1 characters and getting them to actually experience leveling up and, XP and all that stuff and milestones. And
so they all restarted at level 1, and we jumped into the game. And they played for a while, got some levels, and then entered into a 1-year time jump. Fast forward to the game a little bit, and ended up deciding, hey, we're high level now. Let's get some real cool magic items.
Where's that dragon at? Where's the dragon we fought the first time? I want to get my magical floating shield again. Yeah.
So we had them go ahead and roll some history checks. Okay, you remember where it was. You guys make your way there. And, this probably took up 4 whole games of gameplay for them to do this.
And then we
At
threw
least.
roadblocks in the
At
way of
least.
like, oh, no, come over here. Here's this interesting guy. Come over here. This is your regular campaign. Come on back. And they're like, yeah, your shit's cool and whatever, but I mean, I know it's real bummer that your whole town burned down because of this god that we're trying to steal away, but
Have you heard about cool
dragon,
magic
though.
items?
Have you ever seen a floating shield?
Hey, okay.
You don't look like a floating shield, so fuck you.
On our thought process, okay, we figured that getting the magical items would boost us up to give us more strength to fight this big bad guy.
And what did you guys meet when you got there?
Well, no,
How did
hold on.
we
We're
get
not
you
there yet. We're not there yet. So they make this arduous journey through mountains and valleys and hills until they get to this ice-peaked mountain. However, when they remembered it, there was a terrible tundra, just blizzard all around it, and magical ice floated in the skies in the original encounter. Well, when they got there, it was pretty clear, and there's just a little bit of snow on the tippy top of that mountain.
Yep.
So already we're throwing signs that, hey, this white dragon you're looking for isn't there.
Yeah. And I think one of our players actually said that.
Yeah.
I think Davin was like, I'm a little worried about the no snow and the not needing a jacket thing. Like, this is going to be rough. I don't know if he's there.
So
And-
they went and checked it out, found the cave entrance, and instead of a dragon, they were met by a huge colony of goblins
Yeah.
who requested their help. And they said, okay, well, we need to go up this mountain, and your guys' cave's the way to get up there, so we'll help you out on our way, and we'll go in with you.
Mm-hmm.
And they proceeded to go through a long gauntlet of just random traps. They got Pooh Bear stuck in a small thing where goblins
And
came
then-
up and stuck him with sticks in the butt.
Yep.
And they had to deal with fire log traps.
And the whole thing was that
exploding barrels
these
and
goblins were pissed off because kobolds came in and
ran them out of their sacred dragon shrine.
Yeah, they were worshiping a dragon. So it's like, if you guys want a dragon, they're worshiping a dragon. You're on the right track to finding a dragon. And so these guys were run out of their cave where they had their temple set up, or their worshiping shrine. So they basically hired our party, Trevor included, in the attempt to eradicate these kobolds enough to gather their stuff and get out. Well, the problem with kobolds is they like to set up traps, and they like to fool people, and they like to take advantage, much like goblins do, except a little bit more fierce. And so they're going through this gauntlet, Pooh Bear stuck, flaming barrels, rickety bridge over a giant chasm, your classic stuff. And as
I
they...
got Donkey Kong to the fuck off that bridge.
You did. It was so good. I didn't mean to almost kill him, and then he's dangling off the side of the bridge, and I roll a percentile dice, and it rolls a 10. And I'm like, oh, okay. Whew. Like, he's gonna die. And he ended up rolling really well and getting across. That's when they got to the final chamber, where looking through the door, they could see shadows of kobolds dancing around campfires in multiple places inside this room. And they were preparing for a fight, and they ended up bracing the door, taking a full rest, getting all their spells and everything out, and the whole time taking watches as well. And the next morning, they burst in, like, swords cocked and ready to go, and spears loaded to the brim, and they burst in, and there's torches in the center of a wagon wheel, and the wagon wheel is spinning around with cutouts of kobolds on the outside of the wagon wheel. Think very Home Alone, where he's having the party, and there's the shadows on the windows, and the clown in the shower and all that. And they realize that this isn't kobolds. What the hell is this? And the whole time they have the leader of the goblins leading them through and showing them the way. And there was teleporting shenanigans and all that stuff as well during this whole party, where every time he was in danger, he would teleport one of the party members or one of the other extra goblins in the way, and they would get squish-squashed, and
He'd be fine.
Yeah, they'd be schlorped, and then he would be fine. And
so anyways, they go in this room, and when they enter this room, the King Ha,
King
the
Ha, that's
goblins,
me.
shuts and locks the door behind them to where they can't go back, and they can only go forward. Well, when they go forward, it takes them around the other loop of the gauntlet to get the traps they missed.
Yep.
And as they come out, they realize they come out and they finish the gauntlet, and they get back to the mouth of the cave.
Which, like, 2 traps before the end, all they hear is, like, this echoing, eerie laughter of King Ha.
Just laughing the whole
And
time.
it just off in the distance, just over their shoulder, and then he'd pop up down the trail, and they'd chase after him, and then get shot in the butt with crossbow bolts, and
Fall in a poo hole.
fall in a dugout trench that has just been used as a bathroom,
Mhm.
and so they finally chase this little goblin out, and as he's standing on the lip of the opening of the cave where they came in, he says, "Well, this was fun," and then jumps into the air, bursts from his goblin form into a giant tarnished dragon.
Ancient tarnished dragon. So
Yeah.
think like a greenish bronze dragon,
Yeah.
but it's green because it's a tarnished bronze.
Yeah, he's so old, his scales have begun to tarnish, and so he takes off, and floating down from his exit is a small scroll, and that scroll says, "This was a good time. You guys are very entertaining.
Let's do this again.
Yeah, let's do this again." And it was more of a slap in the face to our party because it's like, if you want to derail and go find some crazy shit, go ahead. You can do it. That's fine. I mean, we'll give you a little bit of crazy shit, which we gave them a couple small items, nothing like what they were wanting, but something really to...
A couple maps
Mhm.
and some enticing plot lines for them to follow if they so choose.
Yeah, which we'll follow through on those if they really want to.
Mhm.
We'll follow through, but
But now they have an actual dragon that they can go after. It's just a bit out of their challenge rating right now.
yeah. So
to answer your question, Kayla, were they able to get us back on track, or did they have to come up with a new game plan?
a little bit of both.
I'd say it's a little bit of both. Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of came up with this new game plan on, okay, let's entertain this path for a while,
Mhm.
but then in the end, we need to get them back on the right
And-
track.
Well,
And
we're-
was it challenging? Did it challenge you guys?
Where the game is now, how likely are you guys to run off on another path, or do you think you're going to stick to the main path more
I think
with the way the game's going forward?
I mean, okay, my thought is in that campaign we're going to stick to the main path now, but at the same time, you got to remember I was probably
One of the few.
or only one in the
I'll
party
give you
as
that.
we're going after the dragon that's going, hey,
Guy-
maybe we should go after this back to
Guys,
this main quest. Or
Check it out. Trevor was trying to keep them on track.
I was
Trying to keep the
I know.
continuity.
I was
Oh my
trying.
goodness, so crazy.
But Trevor's a
was
good
trying.
boy like that. He always tries to keep the game going in our direction.
Yeah. Can I tell you guys one of the moments that went off the rails for me and how I got them back on track?
Proceed.
So our party lands in a strange and foreign land to them, the city of Blueholt on an island in the middle of the ocean. It works as a waypoint, and as they enter in from the docks, they hear the sounds of a festival. And they march their way into town, and they see that there, in fact, are festival tents set up everywhere. And not too far from the buildings that brace the dock is a large steel cage, and there's a man atop a pewter box, and he's yelling out to the crowd, "Come witness the champion of our town take on the mighty..." What did I name him? Gorks? Something. The mighty Gorks.
I don't recall, but yeah.
Yeah, the
We'll go
mighty
with
Gorks, and watch them as they fight. And it was just meant to be something entertaining, like, check it out. This is D&D as fuck. Let's get it. And so I was describing, like, well, you see the champion standing aside the podium with the collar, and he's calling out to the group, and he's calling and everything. And then Trevor decides, I want to fight. And then I was like, hold on. And I said, "And here comes his competitor. Are you guys not entertained?" And as he says this, trudging along, leaving heavy indents in the ground, a massive brown bear wearing light leather armor comes trudging into the fighting ring, and it's roaring and growling and snarling, and then it sits on a fat hiney and waits for a treat inside the cage. And Trevor goes, "I'm gonna fight that bear.
Okay,
I'm gonna fight it."
Again,
I said-
you dangled a steak in front of a living dog. We went to that fair to prove our strengths, our talents, and I was
So what did I do?
Fighter. I was a dwarf fighter. My talent was strength and fighting. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna fight the goddamn bear.
And this bear is easily 3 times the size of this dwarf fighter.
Also, to be fair,
To be fair,
this was Trevor's first D&D game.
True. So, but I let him try. I said, okay, you're going to have to roll persuasion to get him to tell the champion fighter no and then let you in, but you're going to have to roll high. Fucking nat 20.
Nat 20.
Fucking nat 20.
This is also when another one of our party members decided, I don't want to watch my party member fight a bear. I'm going to go see what the shopkeep has for sale.
Oh, man.
But the shopkeep was the one running the bear fight.
He was the owner of the bear. So, yeah. So I was trying to split the gameplay between the bear fight and the shopping adventure. And so I was like, well, shit, he rolled a nat 20. All right, I'll pull up the stats. Like, I was just going to describe this, but I'll pull up the stats for you. And so after a brief aside, we start the campaign, or we start the match, and I have him not use any weapons. He's just using his bare fists, and the bear's using his bare fists. And
his
you get it.
bare fist.
Yeah, you get it. His bear fist.
His BEAR fists.
Yeah. Is that how you spell bear?
Or is it his BARE BEAR?
I think no. It's spelled BEER.
No, it's his BARE bear.
Hey guys,
B-E-A-R
welcome to our
bear.
spelling podcast where we talk about how to spell words. Are you not entertained?
But it's
So
bear,
anyways,
bear fist. They're
so-
bear as an empty, but they're also bear mitts.
Trevor, how'd you fare? How'd you do?
How did you fare at the fair?
How did I fare at the fair?
Yeah,
I got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah, he
I
got
just
wrecked.
imagine Smokey from Friday standing over me right after. You got knocked the fuck out.
He landed like 2 or 3 hits, and then the bear hit him twice, and he was on the ground. And so
What level
again,
was I at that point, though?
I think I started you guys at level 2.
Yeah, I
That
wasn't
sounds
high.
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
was
you
not
guys
high
were still
level.
squishy,
I thought I
but
was
you
pretty
rolled a
bad.
nat 20,
I
and so
thought
I
I
was
was
like,
badass.
all right, I'll let you.
I
But-
thought I was badass, and then I learned what levels really were.
The
Yeah.
best way to picture this, do you guys remember the wrestling scene in
Mhm.
the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man
Yeah.
movie?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that if Trevor was
Put me to the
Spider-Man
cage.
and
Yeah.
wasn't able to do Spider-Man-y stuff.
No, he was like a brick with a
Yeah.
face drawn on it.
He was Kirby in
And-
brick form.
He was a brick with a face drawn on it with those funny glasses with a big nose.
Does it
And-
surprise you guys that I built a dwarf though?
No, not at
No,
all.
that's
That's where
where
your
it all
love of
started.
dwarves. Yeah, I was just gonna say that's the origin story of your love for dwarves. But anyways,
Trevor, the
so
dwarf
again,
dwarf.
a little bit of the same. Well, I let them get off track, and then I wrecked him, and then we got back on track. Like, I think it's important to indulge your players, and if you think it's gonna derail a lot of the other parts you have in your campaign, tailor it to what you need. So giving our characters magical items right after they leveled up in our current campaign, after going and fighting a dragon, would have wrecked a lot of the shit we had afterwards. Which we could have just stepped it up, but then by the end of it, everyone would be level 25 characters, and that's the only way we'd be able to finish this campaign. But instead, what we did was we enticed them with another query to go after, and then, politely patted them on the butt as they left the cave and said, all right, get back on track. And they did. And in my instance of, the dwarf fighting a bear, I let him get owned and derailed our game for a little bit. And then when he woke up, it was the shopkeep talking to him. And then the shopkeep took him back into his shop and gave him a healing potion, and then let our other player kind of peruse the shop and get them back on the track of, okay, let's explore this fair real quick and then hear what else is going on. And then we went off from there. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Another question? Let's get to a listener question. Another listener question. What do you guys think?
Do we have another listener
I
question?
don't.
Oh, did I steal the other listener question?
I think
I
you
don't
did.
read, so I didn't see that there was only one on here.
Yeah, that was our only other listener question. I do
Let's
have some,
do a
I have some forum questions.
Yeah, let's do a forum question.
So, all right, Bruce, I will, since you're into this, I'll let you decide. I have a couple of Yahoo Answers questions. I have a D&D Beyond question. I have a giant tip question. So, you tell me which one of those you want.
Let's get one of them Yahoo.
One of them Yahoos?
Yeah.
Okay. This one actually plays a little bit into what we were just talking about, I guess, a while back. So, Yahoo Answers from Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
They say, alrighty, basics first. I'm a D&D 3.5e kind of girl.
Okay.
I've DM'd for groups of around 5 to 8 a couple of times.
Jeez.
And played a decent number of campaigns, but in about a week and a half, I am supposed to run a dungeon for only 2 people. I have the dungeon layout planned, but am unsure what to do in regards to traps and monsters since I don't know what sort of characters they will be playing. I generally love putting in a few tricky traps for the rogue types. I've been blessed in that my group tends to play a key role, but I'm hesitant to add in these stronger monsters if the smaller group doesn't end up playing either a healer or a rogue. Any help would absolutely rock. As a side note, one of the players is fairly advanced as far as knowledge and skill in D&D goes, but the other is kind of noobish, so I'm a smidge worried about to play Gesalt.
I don't know what that word is.
I don't either. And by the way, noobish is spelled N00BISH.
Ooh, lead it up.
Yeah, super elite.
So I think you put in the big
starting
monsters.
Here is going to be a session 0. Before you even start playing, you need a session 0.
They probably don't have time for that. They're 2 people playing a game.
There's always time for it. It's a phone call.
That's true. You right?
Yeah.
You right.
All it takes is talking with your players, filling them out, finding out what they're interested in. You know, say, hey, newbie player, what kind of, do you want to sling magic? Are you looking to heal people? Do you want to be sneaky?
The way this reads to me is it's a couple. This reads to me like the boyfriend or the girlfriend is heavy into D&D and is like, look, I have a friend who will DM a game for just us. We don't have to get in front of anyone. You don't have to be embarrassed. You can come along and then you can get your feet wet and then see what you think. That's what this reads to me.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
You want to DM a game for me and my wife?
I would. You know I would.
Oh, and
why would you threaten me with a good time?
Yeah, she'll never do it.
Yeah, I figured.
Continue.
What if we can get all the wives in on it?
No.
All 3 of
them?
No.
Wait.
No.
Can we call that a... Wait. Bonus episode.
Ooh,
We get the wife to play a game.
We should really try it.
I love it.
God.
We can all give up material possessions this year for Christmas and ask them that'll be our Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Let us record them playing D&D for their very first, some of their first times.
Yes, I love it. I think it's a great idea.
But
Anywho,
getting back to the question.
Here I am, the guy that normally keeps the continuity.
Yeah, you
now
derailed
I'm taking
us.
us off track. Okay,
Hey.
continue. Go.
Content
So-
is content.
So I feel like you put in the big monsters, but you balance it by giving them magic items. You give them something that they can use that's simple to use
Key
for
items.
the noob. Yeah, for the noob, you give them a key item. You give them like, oh, this is a +2 Dragon Slayer sword. When you hit a dragon with it, it does 4 extra D6 damage or whatever it is. And then for the advanced player, you give them just a plus whatever weapon to help them out with the bigger beast, and them being only 2 players. And then that way you can kind of balance it, but still let them have a little bit of free reign where you're not just railroading it to, yep, you're going to kill these people. You're going to kill whatever is in ahead of you. Or, don't worry about it. It's basically a Deus Ex Machina situation where this sword is going to help save your life. It's just going to animate on its own and go kill the dragon for you, and you just get to stay right here and drink coffee, a PSL. And you still make it challenging. You still give them some traps. My favorite are pit traps. There's a big pit in front of them, and you have to run and jump over it. But on the other side of that pit, there's a drop door that leads to another pit trap, and that's always a good one because then it's a athletics check to jump, and then it is a dex save to try and grab onto the sides. And if they fall in, then they get a little bit of damage, and it keeps them on their toes, and that alone will keep them kind of guessing through the game enough to where they're not focusing on, well, shit, what's at the end of this, or it'll keep them entertained enough to where you don't have to put a ton of extra stuff in there. You can just throw a couple of those, what is it called? Disorientation, or like a magician where they say, look over here, look at this hand, and they're really doing something with their other hand. And you can put a couple of those in there, and that will flavor it up enough to where they're not so focused on, well, I just walked down this tunnel and now I have to fight this dragon. It's, well, this is a little bit of a gauntlet. Oh man, that was tricky. Okay, what am I going to do now? Or how am I going to do this? And then do we go down this hallway or this hallway? But it really doesn't matter. And then, they roll an investigation check on a certain area and they find a wall made of paper, and then they find that +10 sword or whatever,
Well, so I think those are some pretty good specific examples on what you can do. But I have some tips for you as far as being a more malleable DM, able to change on the fly while you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when it comes to monsters, you can do away with hit points in general.
Oh, yes, this is good.
And you turn it to a round-based system to where, you have a monster and you have their total HP in mind when you do this. So you write down their total HP so that way you can create an average attack damage that you can bump up and bump down with fake rolls, so that way they think you're still playing 100%, but because it's a noob, you have full control as DM to make sure they have a good experience. And what you do is you set it up to where it'll take 13 full rounds for this monster to kill the party.
Yeah, that way they still feel like they're challenged and they're doing some stuff, but
you have
really
it's
up to you.
Set to where that monster will die after 10 rounds of combat, period, regardless of how much damage they do. After 10 successful hit rounds, so as long as one of the combatants makes a hit on the monster, that counts as a hit for that round. And after 10 rounds of hits, the monster dies.
Yeah, you just write out 10 little empty boxes and you check them off every time there's a hit.
So that way,
round.
you don't have to worry about the damage and making sure it's balanced. You have the skin and the effects you want, for the imagination scape. But the hit points and the stats are more loose on your side of the DM screen. That way, you don't have to worry about killing off the party because you're used to the bigger party situation. Mm-hmm. And then moving into traps and things like that, if you like to do a tricky puzzle style trap, instead of relying on the intellect of the players to really get through it, you drop down like a dead body at the start of the trap that has notes taken on it. That way, it gives them a little bit of help with it. And instead of having to figure out, sleight of hand checks to disassemble this lock and push this thing over here and then go slide that piece over there and put the horn backwards in the monster's head, you just give them a piece of paper or parchment that's on a dead body, with maybe a magical item that'll help them out, like a key item. And you leave all the traps based to previous fallen adventurers. That way it sets a slightly eerie tone that, adventurers were here before and they died, they couldn't get through.
I like that.
Well, this one took notes as its members try to get across, and it tried to get across this open room where, maybe spikes come out of the floor or gas pours in and it acidifies the air and chokes them out, or whatever the penalty may be. You set it up to where there is a certain sequence that they have to follow through. And in order to finish that sequence, they take notes with numbers jotted down, the things that worked and then things that didn't work. And then they kind of just have to fill in the spaces. So it gives them a puzzle, a bit of a Sudoku kind of feel, kind of a thinker. But it'll occupy their time a little bit. And then going back to a previous episode where we talked about the action economy outside of combat, you make it timed.
Yeah.
To where everything they're doing in game to activate or read or to do this or do that, it's taking up an action. And the whole process is timed. And after the time is ended, maybe a boulder comes out and forces them through, Indiana Jones style, or a door closes and locks and more monsters come out. And then when they kill the monsters, it resets.
My favorite is like the time lock dungeon where you have a certain amount of time, action economy outside of combat to finish this puzzle. And if you don't do it in time, you die.
Mm-hmm.
But then you're teleported right back outside the room. There's no way out backwards. You have to keep going forwards, and every time you die, you're teleported back out of the room. And then that forces them to try to address the issue, but know that, like, if we fail, we're not going to completely die, but it's going to suck. And then after they do that enough times, if they're getting frustrated or if they can't figure it out, then you put in that fail-safe of, like, okay, well, you click this button this time, and now a boulder comes through. You guys do a deck save, you dodge out of the way. Well, now the boulder smashed the door open. Now you can move through.
Also, I would say when they're going through the dungeon, another thing that you can do is have one or two real tricky traps set up that requires a puzzle to solve. But just throughout, have simple traps. Okay, you're in this hallway. No one rolled perception to see if there was anything around or investigated, so they hit the tripwire.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a spike comes out of the ceiling or a log flies out. Simple traps that gets them into the mindset of be on lookout, be aware of your surroundings, check every corner. Every time you enter a new spot, announce, I'd like to look around.
Yeah.
I'd like to try to see if there's any traps in the way. But have a good balance of both kinds, so that way they get both feels in the same dungeon.
Yeah, and then that way it's not so much intensity all the time, where it's like, oh, you trigger the log trap, deck save, okay, now the log trap's done, but you need to keep an eye out, and then you can move on,
And I think a good place that you can find some of these more simple puzzle-type traps is a good old gem of a game, Knights of the Old Republic, that I still to this day play multiple playthroughs of. But if you go to like the Sith encampment on Korriban and deal with the prisoners there's a few different ones you can do in the interrogation room of, chemical levels. Or there's another one when you're on Terrace and you're in the swoop racing department and you have to try to free somebody and you have to, find the right sequence of numbers. They're pretty simple, easy to figure out on your own just by looking at them. And I think it'd be a good, simple trap to give to your noobish player who can look at it outside of the game on a piece of paper and then apply it in game with role playing.
Yeah, and I'll say you don't have to set up traps that are basically you would have to be a rogue to figure out. There's a lot of other styles of traps that
and not every
a simple different class is going to be able to figure out.
Yeah,
I ran a campaign recently with just a one shot. I ran a one shot recently with two people. Husband and wife, same kind of setup, and I threw them in a little gauntlet, and one was what was Kasaro?
Kasaro was a Dragonborn
Paladin.
What was Jackie's character's name? Justice that we have just killed.
She's a fighter, ranged fighter.
Yeah, ranged fighter. So
she's our super cool elf who has the
serial killer mode.
Yeah,
the
straight serial killer mentality.
Yeah, serial killer mentality, and then the guns mounted onto her warforged arm.
So I tried to get. I did a one shot with her and her husband just to try to get her to RP more, and that was one of the things I did. I ran him through a gauntlet in a dungeon, and the traps I made were all something that, like I said, you don't have to be a rogue to find or to figure out. You
they
have
just
that
get more bonuses for being a rogue and dealing with the traps.
Yeah, you have that. Like I said, that log swing. That they step on this tripwire and this log swings, and then every time they take a wrong step, maybe it's pressurized floor plates, and if you step on the wrong one, a log swings down. But if they're a ranger, they can shoot an arrow and cut the ropes so the log can't swing.
Throw an axe.
Or I did one where there was runes that were written on the wall, and they had to figure out the correct order to push these runes in order for the door to open. And you can either do it like I did, where if you push it in the wrong order, then an arrow shoots out and they all flash red, and then they have to start the order all over again. Or you can do like Bruce was saying and basically make it almost like a video game checkpoint at the beginning, where if you die, you just respawn at the checkpoint.
Yeah.
Kind of like I get the total feels of the 11th hour.
Beep boop. This is a warning. Minor spoilers ahead for the Adventure Zone. Beep boop.
On that one, from the Adventure Zone, where they had to open the lockers in the correct
spoilers.
Order.
Yeah.
They had to open the lockers in the correct order, and every time they'd fail, they'd explode, and then start the day over again.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
Groundhog's Day.
Yeah, you can do it that way. So there's a lot of different ways to run a campaign. Set traps. Definitely don't be afraid to have traps just because no one's a rogue. It makes it a really fun game, especially for a noob player. Because otherwise, it might be fun for the high level guy or the guy that's played a lot to get into the combat. And do all these things, but it can be a little daunting for a new player. So then getting that outside of combat RP, where they can really dive into the character and dive into the game and use logic to solve things and just do creative problem solving, is usually a lot easier and more entertaining for a noob player to jump into.
Well, and then if it's, one spouse is more seasoned, I think they're going to be more entertained by watching their loved one or their friend who they're trying to get into it enjoy the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for me especially, like, I love the experience of it. Like, I like watching my players enjoy the interaction or deal with the interaction, or like just this last game that I DM'd on Friday, my players did something I wasn't expecting, and I had to fast forward the campaign a little bit, or the experience a little bit. Because of that, they skipped over an entire section of gameplay that I wasn't expecting them to do. With that, like, I liked watching them solve the problem, and I liked watching them deal with the issues at hand, and that was just fun for me. And I didn't get to play. I wasn't doing the thing I exactly wanted to do, but, that's just how it is.
But hey, it's group storytelling.
Yeah. So, okay, real quick.
This is, no one saw it, but I was giving the hand signals for the Trevor train
to
wrap that
he
question
was
up.
chewing.
Well, I got one last thing before we switch Did you have something to say, Bruce? Did
Yeah.
I cut you off?
No, I was just gonna read the next question.
Okay, but before you get to, I have one last bit of advice of a game hook you can use for this. And part of the game hook is whenever they get to the dungeon, they both have some type of sentimental object on it. The door shuts behind them. They can't get out. And a blink dog appears with a key around its neck.
Ooh.
The blink dog snags these sentimental items and runs off into the dungeon, disappearing. So part of the trap can be just dealing with the blink dog. You know, maybe it's not super mean or super tough to fight, but they go through, you know, a gauntlet, a couple, you know, cave critters in the base of it. They get to the final room and they got to deal with this blink dog. And part of it is just how you're going to get this key from the blink dog, because every time you get close, it disappears. You're trying to get your stuff back. You try to attack it. Nothing works. It's just messing with you. And that's a good, real fluid way that you can kind of control the environment, where if they're not doing something you want them to do, or they're doing something you don't want them to do, that blink dog is your way of railroading them through the process.
Blink squirrel.
Okay, Bruce, you said you had one. You had another question?
I was gonna read
So
this question because I want to argue.
We have enough time for one more, so make it a good one.
Okay. Giant in the Playground, M. Thurston says, so if I'm an archer at long range and my teammate casts darkness on himself near my target, I am at disadvantage for the range, but at advantage for the target being blinded. So I get a straight roll hit. If it's not dark out and at long range, two archers shooting at each other are also using straight rolls. Just thought I would drop this here. Love these rules for blinded.
So I found this question on Giant in the Playground, and it, like I said, it's not so much of a question.
Yeah,
This
it's more of
was
a statement.
Yeah, this was a guy trying to drop in basically a hack, a way to cheat the blinded spell.
Speedrun.
I thought I'd bring it to you guys because I read it and I 100% disagree. If I was DMing that game, I wouldn't let it happen because that's not the way I see the rule personally. I wanted to bring it to you guys and see what you thought and how you would play that out, because I know how I would play it out.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree that you're not going to get advantage, and you're not going to just cancel it out. The way I'm seeing it is that while there's not physical cover there, if the darkness spell is initiated and you cannot see the target in the darkness spell, you are going to be at disadvantage, period. And if you want to try to argue the straight roll, I might give it to you if your argument's good enough. However, I am going to give them that AC bonus for full coverage.
Absolutely.
And
darkness works both ways, bud.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see in, they can't see out. That's how it works.
I wouldn't, if they want to try to argue the straight roll, I still wouldn't give it to them. I don't even care what your reason is. They are in darkness. They can't see. You can't see them. How do you get a straight roll out of that? I understand your idea is they're blinded, so they can't see, so I have advantage on the roll. But it's not that they're blinded and they can't see you. They're blinded, so they have disadvantage. You're basically blinded to them, so you also have disadvantage because you can't see them.
Yeah. Well, the only way I could see this working is if you have like True Sight or Devil Sight or whatever
to be able to see in magical darkness.
Yeah, if you can see through magical darkness, absolutely, you have advantage. Go for it.
Well, there is one point in here that makes me question it, and it's the point that they have an ally that is near the target. Now, I don't know if it doesn't specify if they're in melee range, but if they are in melee range and they are distracted, then you have rogue skills to where you can use that to advantage to get a sneak attack. It might cancel it out, but again, you cannot see the target. So because you cannot see the target, I think
sneak attack specifically says an enemy you can see.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
And it doesn't work on range attack anyways.
I still wouldn't give advantage to the person that's. I still wouldn't give advantage either. The person that is in close to that other character is also in darkness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they can't even see the other creature either. It basically, as far as I see it, this darkness spell just creates disadvantage. It's not going to give you advantage in any way.
It gives the caster advantage on getting away. It gives the caster advantage on avoiding hits, avoiding more damage. Most of the time, I would say it's a spell caster, so they're kind of squishy. And then, they get in too close where they're not supposed to be, or they're trying to cast a spell on someone, whatever. Well, someone sneaks some on you, you cast Magical Darkness, well, now it's disadvantage on opportunity attacks for you to get away, or for them to hit you when you try to get away, so that's a benefit for you because that gives you a little bit of wiggle room to not get hit again and get squished out.
So the only way I think I would let, now that I'm thinking about it, the only way I would let a straight roll happen is if you had previously cast Hunter's Mark on the on them. If you had Hunter's Mark on them before this other caster dropped Darkness, or like you guys were saying, if you had True Sight or something that actually let you track
Tremor Sense,
that let you track that creature in the darkness, then I still wouldn't give you advantage, but I would give you a straight roll.
I would probably give them advantage if they had True Sight, Devil Sight, or Tremor Sense to where they can pinpoint the location of the target and basically nullify the effects of the darkness spell against themselves as the shooter.
But that's not because of the darkness they'd be getting the advantage, though. That's because of the...
They would be getting advantage either because the target's in melee with them, or the other person melee with them, or the fact that they're blind, so they can't see the attack coming in any way. I think that's why I would give them advantage on it. If they had True Sight, Devil Sight, or Tremor Sense and could pinpoint the target and be able to find them in the darkness, or Hunter's Mark, or if they're Warlock and have a Hex on them, anything that allows them to pinpoint and target them effectively, I would give them advantage. But when it comes down to attacking into a dark hole without any of those things, you're rolling at disadvantage every time.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with Trevor. Like, the only way you can know is if he's Hunter marked, hexed, or if he was entangled or something and in a single spot, but now he's blinded and he hasn't moved. I think you don't get advantage, but you get a straight roll. But yeah, I think that this guy's wrong. Yeah, M. Thurston, you're a jerk. You know that?
Why are you getting the people wrong?
Trying to break the game, you doucher.
Ya dosh.
So essentially what it comes down to is just because advantage and disadvantage cancel each other out most of the time, you just got to look at what is actually going on and pull yourself away from what the stats read.
Yeah.
Leave it up to the DM to think about it. Picture what's going on in your head if you're not using minis and a map. Actually think about it. So if I'm an archer and I'm shooting into a black, dark cave, at a noise I can hear in there, but I don't know what it is. But they can't see me either, so it should be a straight roll. No, you can't see them. You can't see your target, so you're not going to be able to shoot. And it's going to be a lucky shot. If you hit them, it's strictly luck. And if you have someone that's standing next to the target and it does hit, or you clear AC, well, you're also going to roll a percentage dice to see which target you hit.
Yeah. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on time today.
Let's get into housekeeping.
So I was actually going to say, if you see our Facebook page, if you see our Instagram and you see a post on there of like, hey, just a question, whatever, don't be afraid to answer that question on there or post your question there. We will answer those just as well as if you send them into our DMs or slide them into our DMs, as Trevor was about to correct me. He just gave me the thumbs up, so I was good. So don't be afraid to hit us up slide into our DMs. Another thumbs up. Don't be afraid to slide into our DMs on Instagram, Facebook. We have a Twitter as well. We have a YouTube page that only has the teaser up there right now, but we're working on getting full episodes posted there. Don't be afraid to hit us up on those outlets, and you can always find us on those outlets by typing in @SitDMs1, SITDMS1 on most, if not all, social platforms. We are also on Podbean, iTunes podcasts, iHeartRadio now. We are also on Spotify. We're kind of everywhere. If you don't hear us on your podcasting app, post it on the page and we'll try and figure out how to get on there. So, and again, I think most of all what we need to say is thank you. Thank you so much for listening.
If your favorite podcasting app is Max Fun Network, we're trying.
Yes.
We are trying. We are trying so hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like he said, Podbean, iHeart, Spotify,
iTunes.
iTunes, Apple Podcasts. We're on all those. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Hit us up on any of those as well.
And if you're not into social media, we do have an email. You can reach us at emailthedms@google.com.
Gmail.com.
Googlemail.com.
Yeah, at googlemail.com.
He's new to the internets, guys.
So
I really am.
Email the DMs, EMAILTHEDMS @gmail.com.
And if you think you have a question or you'd like to be on the show, maybe you've played D&D with us before and you have a funny story you want to tell or a question you have, just, again, slide into our DMs, let us know. We had someone on our show last episode, Ace, our little buddy. And he did great. He did a wonderful job. And we look forward to having him on again and maybe doing a bonus episode with him for like a Villain of the Month kind of deal, or maybe even bringing him in to play some D&D. That would be great. And we can do that with you as well. So just hit us up, slide into our DMs. Trevor. Slide into our DMs, and we'll do what we can to get you on the show or get your question on the show.
And right now we are posting episodes every other Friday. So every other Friday, keep an eye out on your favorite podcasting source for our new...
We'll update you on Facebook as well.
Yep, for our new content.
And hey, tell a friend.
Yeah,
show us
do.
off to somebody. We don't, advertise or anything right now. We're kind of just going by word of mouth. And if you could just tell a friend, or when we post an episode, or you maybe pick a back episode, send them a link. Just say, hey, check this out. They got some good D&D advice, or at the very least, they're entertaining.
Yeah, send them our little dumb teaser thing from our first recording ever, and just apologize to them for us, and then give them a regular episode.
Well,
right.
Before we wrap up, I do want to give a special thanks to James C. and Kayla N. again for writing in and giving us your questions. We really appreciate it.
You suck.
Yeah.
He's from Giant Tip.
He just confused and trying to get his way as a player. He doesn't suck. That's like 80% of players out there.
You all suck. I'm just kidding. We all suck. All right. So I will say thank you to our listeners, all of our people who are supporting us. Thank you for our new intro to Carter. Thank you, Carter, so very, very much. We appreciate you, and we are indebted to you. And you will never know how much we appreciate what you've done for us. And if you guys like our new intro, please leave a thanks there for Carter as well, and we'll get the message to her and let her know what you guys think. For the end of the show, we always give you a little quick tip for your D&D life, and I think I'm going to force Trevor to go first.
Okay. Yeah, since I had the lowest initiative at the start.
Absolutely.
So my little quick quip is don't forget, everything seems impossible until you roll that D20.
All right. I'm going to give you guys mine. It's more of a question than
something to grow on.
Yeah, something to grow on. What's brown and can't swim? A cart full of goblins.
All right.
This has been Sliding into the DMs, and always remember, I can necromance if I want to. We can bring your friends to life, but if your friends are dead, and if they're not dead, well, then they're no friends of mine.
Oh, man.
Yes. End it on a musical note. I love it.
Fare thee well, and adventure onward.